Hi, I'm Amy Karanik, a Sculpey brand ambassador. I'm in the Sculpey studio today to show you the Art Deco Lattice Stencil. Stencils are a versatile tool to add texture and interest to your polymer clay creations. This beautiful pattern will add detail perfect for jewelry or for home decor. I'm going to take you through several ways that I've liked to use this stencil. So first I have some Sedona, and I have this sheeted on about the second thickest setting through my pasta machine. And I've made a large sheet, large enough to house the whole texture sheet. First, I'm just going to show you how to texture with the lattice sheet. And every time I texture or stencil or do processes like this, I always burnish my clay down to my work surface with a roller, because I want the clay to stick down and stay in place when I'm manipulating it just from the surface. So that's all I'm doing, is sticking that clay down so it doesn't slide around. Next, I'm going to apply the lattice sheet, stencil sheet, and I'm just lining it up so I can make some really cool samples. First, I'm going to use hand pressure to make it bite into the clay. And you can see already through the stencil, because this stencil is translucent, I can see areas where it's not really stuck, and that helps me guide my fingertips to make it stick down. Now what I like to do is use a roller to really make sure this is burnished down well. And you don't even have to roll, you can kind of drag. What I'm going for is a surface where the clay is at least level with the little windows. Okay? And I am rolling because I'm not going to drag any clay through the window, I'm just burnishing it down to get that texture. All right, look at the stencil itself. Here again, because it's translucent, I can see that it is really well burnished. There's not any air bubbles trapped between the stencil and the clay. All right, we're ready to peel this up. I just start in a corner. You can also see as you release it, it turns white again, because that means it's releasing. And look at that beautiful, even texture. So this is great for larger home decor items because you get such a good working surface, such a great amount in the texture. Now I'm just going to release this and set it out of the way and show you another technique. All right, next let's take a look at the lattice texture sheet with paint. So here I've got some ivory already sheeted. Again, I'm going to roll it down to my work surface, make sure it doesn't slip and slide. That way I'm in control of the clay instead of the other way around. Okay, take a clean texture sheet, or stencil sheet, and I'm going to burnish it down as well. First, I'm making it bite into the clay with my fingertips, just like I did on the first one, and then I'm going to roll it into place. As I roll, again, I'm wanting to make sure that the clay is coming up level to the top of the stencil. I don't really want it to protrude. I want it to just fill every tiny little window. Okay, checking my stencil, making sure I don't see air bubbles. Now I'm going to bring in some paint, and this is just like a light purple. This is acrylic paint. I like to use acrylic paint because it'll dry completely on the polymer clay before it goes into the oven. They work so well together. First, I'm just using a circular motion just to get the paint distributed. You can always add more paint or take paint away with a paper towel or a baby wipe. But I want to get a really even kind of thick coverage. I want the paint at its purest, look. Now you could also add in lots of other color paints at the same time. That is a beautiful look with these stencils to like do an ombre effect. You could go light purple to dark purple or whatever your favorite color is. And just really putting the paint on there. Now I'm using a tapping motion now because I find that kind of balances the paint to give me an even coverage. You could put the paint on super thinly and use a swirling motion to get, like a fingerprint swirling technique. So many ways you can use paint. And like I said before, acrylic paint can dry completely on the clay before it goes into the oven, just like when you use it as a silkscreen technique. And then that way you can manipulate the clay and move it around and use pieces that have paint on them to shape them any way that you want. Okay, I've got a really thick coating. Let me just clean my hand real quick. You don't have to let the paint dry on there. As long as the clay came up to the surface of the wells, it's going to be perfect. Now I'm just looking for a corner that's easy to grasp, and I'm going to pull the stencil off. Now to clean up this stencil, since it's just acrylic paint, you could go right into a water bath with your stencil, or you could just go to running water. Just clean it with lukewarm water and you're good to go. So that is just really pretty and really shows up the detail of the stencil. Let me carefully remove this one, and then we're going to move on to the next technique. All right, next let's take a look at some white clay and mica powder. Mica powder is such a popular, you could do mica powder or Gilder's paste, whatever you prefer. Chalks would fall into this category as well. Anything powdery and loose. Go ahead and burnish your clay down to the work surface like we've done each time. Make it stick. Take a clean stencil and apply it. Bite it in with your fingertips. Then roll it again to make the clay level with the stencil surface. All I'm doing is filling those little windows with clay. Okay, next we're going to use, this is some copper mica powder. And when I use mica powder, I always try to tap most of it down into the vessel before removing the lid. And then I like to work out of the lid. So let me show you my technique. I just take my finger and put it in. When I run out of mica powder in the lid, because my finger is slightly sticky from the clay, I can just add more with my fingertip. And I'm going to do this one kind of not all the same depth of mica powder, just to show you how even swirling it through that pattern gives you kind of an ombre of different colors. So pretty. Let's grab a little more, put some here and there, and then I'll just finish up with some swirling motions. So I'm going to leave this one uneven just so you can see how cool it's going to look. All right, be sure and put the lid back on your mica powder right away and clean fingertips with baby wipes or running water. All right, now we're ready to peel this one from the corner. And this time I'm just going to grab a needle tool and go in here like so. My sheet of clay is bigger than the stencil, so I'm going to use a needle tool to start it. Just peel back from the corner and look at that beautiful ombre pattern. It almost looks like batik. I love that. So if your stencil has mica powder, residual mica powder, you can clean that with running lukewarm water or a baby wipe, and then just let it dry completely before using again. Okay, let me get this one out of our way and we'll go on to, got two more techniques. And I really do burnish these down well, so. Okay. All right, so with this blue, I'm gonna use it with liquid Sculpey. Liquid Sculpey is my favorite way to use through the stencils because liquid Sculpey is my favorite product. So here we go, we're burnishing our clay down again. This is a deep blue cornflower. The reason I love using liquid Sculpey on top of solid Sculpey or solid Primo or Soufflé is because they are made of the same, you know, they share kind of like qualities because they're all made right here at Sculpey. And so they work so well together. I'm burnishing this down with my fingertips. This one really shows you how you can see those air bubbles between the stencil and the dark blue color. So I'm just taking a bite into the clay and then I'm rolling over it with this roller. Again, I want that clay to come up at least level with the windows in the lattice. And I'm just looking through those air bubbles to see if I need, like right here's a white air bubble. That means I need a little more pressure there. Just get that to come right up. All right, this is a lot like our paint technique that we already did. You just want to apply your liquid Sculpey in a little amount and then we're going to spread it around with fingers. Now this is also cool, you could use several colors of liquid Sculpey and do like an ombre or just, you know, a color changing from color to color of liquid Sculpey. This also will seep into the base clay and become one sheet overnight. And so you get these beautiful surface techniques with the lattice stencil that you can actually handle and manipulate because the liquid Sculpey likes to seep into the Primo or the Souffle, whatever you're using as a base. They come together and become one patterned element. So I'm just using a circular motion to get it distributed. And then I'm going to tap it like I did the paint to make sure it's kind of all the same thickness. Or you don't have to do that. You could, you know, do like we did with the mica powder and put it in thicken areas and thinner in others to create that kind of batik look. Whatever you're going for, it's possible with this stencil. All right, now I'm just tapping. I can see a few places where it's not quite snugged up to all the little stencil windows, so I'm tapping in those areas. Okay. Now I'm going to clean my fingertips before we remove it. And like I said, this will seep into the base clay and become one touchable, handleable thing that you can manipulate into jewelry or home decor pieces and have that beautiful pattern made by the lattice stencil. So I'm just peeling up a corner and pulling back. I just love that. Makes me so happy. Okay, so your stencil now, because it's got liquid Sculpey on it, the best way to clean this would be to wipe that off with a paper towel, get as much off as you possibly can, and then if there's still any residual, you can clean it with a little rubbing alcohol and then run it under lukewarm water and let it dry completely before using again. Okay, just allow me to move this out of my work area so I can show you the last technique. It's pretty warm in here, so my clay's a little bit sticky. All right, last technique, I'm going to use some Cabernet clay with gold leaf. All right, so let's roll this down like we did all our other pieces right to the mat. Make sure it's well seated, stuck down. Okay, now I'm going to bring in my gold leaf. Now this is composite gold leaf. You want to use composite gold leaf. It works really well with oven baked clays. So I have that here all ready to go, and I need to put a lattice stencil on top of my clay, so just lining that up, and then I'm going to do exactly the same thing again. Make it bite by using some fingertip pressure. You can totally see where it's stuck and where it isn't because of the translucence of the sheet. I know I keep saying that, but it's just so important. Okay. Now I'm going to roll over it to make the clay fill the little windows and come level to the top of the stencil. Making that nice texture pattern like we did in the first round over and over again. Just making sure there's no gaps between the stencil and the clay. All right, now I've got my gold leaf here. I'm just going to open it up to an unused page. Gold leaf, composite gold leaf comes you know, sandwiched in pieces of paper. I'm going to try to get a whole sheet. So what I'll do is just grab the paper and, oh, I can't grab the paper in this one because it has a binding on the edge. So I'm just going to grab the gold leaf and pull it over the stencil. It's real flighty. It wants to stick down prematurely, wants to move around, wants to pull off on your fingers. That's just kind of the nature of the beast. So we're doing the best we can. All right, I don't think I can move that much more, even though I would really love to have this edge done. I don't think I should. So what we want to do is start in the middle, right here. Start right in the middle with tapping. And all right away, you can see all those little windows filling. I think you can probably see the texture of the stencil coming through, even through the gold leaf. Just tap it down from the center out. And what you're doing is kind of pushing those wrinkles outward. And I'm just tapping now. I'm not using a sliding motion because I don't want to move the gold leaf at this point. I just want it to stick down where I want it. Now if you want to, you could take a blade and remove that piece right there. I'm just going to leave it for now. And I am going to pull a little piece off and just do a repair right there. Well, there we go. There it is. I dropped it. Just repaired that right there. So composite gold leaf is made out of lots of different metals, and it's not pure, but it works super well with polymer clay, and it won't tarnish on polymer clay. It stays the way you see it. Okay, now that I have it all tapped down, I'm going to start in the center with a rubbing motion, circular with my fingertip. And what happens is the composite gold leaf, it sticks to the clay, but not the stencil. So pretty soon we're going to see the clay start to move off of the stencil, but stick to the clay. And every once in a while, I'll see an area of that Cabernet clay showing up. And what I can do is rub back over it, because the gold leaf will tend to stick to my sticky fingers, and then I can get that on my fingers and it'll go back to an area that possibly where the Cabernet is showing and it didn't quite have an even covering. All right, so just keep going, keep removing it from the stencil top with these circular motions. Really sticking it down to the clay. And here again, you could do like an ombre of, you could do more than one color of gold leaf at a time. You could do gold on part and silver on part. That would be cool. All right, so right in this area, you can see how the stencil is still fully exposed or becoming fully exposed, while the clay areas are keeping the gold leaf intact. I'm just going to go ahead and encourage this gold leaf to go away. You could totally save that in your gold leaf sandwich. You could put it back in. Just doing some touch-up work now where I see this stencil design isn't quite completely exposed. And if it sticks to the stencil, that's fine, because when we peel it up, if you don't get it completely exposed, it will go away on the top of the stencil with the stencil. Okay? All right, glad we did that one last, or we would have had gold leaf in all our other pieces too. Okay, I think you can see the stencil now. I'm just going to pick a corner and use my needle tool to help peel it up. And voila, beautiful, shiny, cool pattern in gold leaf right on the clay. All right, now this didn't really stick a lot of gold leaf to it. You could clean that with, probably just clean that up with a baby wipe. And then if you want, you could go in here and kind of, I would just leave these loose pieces as they are, because when it bakes, those will come right off. See how they're sticking up in areas? You could bake it like that, and then those will just come right off. Where it's really burnished down well, that's gonna stick and make that beautiful pattern. So, all right, that is the lattice stencil. So great for adding surface techniques and decor to your jewelry and home items.